Hi, this is For Honor Game Review. Let me just kick things off by saying that after playing all the betas and the alphas in the main game, that the people who made this game clearly love their product and are highly motivated to make it as best as they can. It is evident in all aspects throughout the game. That is not to say that For Honor is not without its own issues, and might not be for every gamer out there, but when people put so much effort into something they care about, in my experience, it always pays off. So in this review, I'll go through some topics and then give you my own opinion on the game. I won't touch the story aspects of the game, as I think For Honor was primarily a multiplayer game project, and as such I shall overlook the story part till a later date when I probably will do a separate story review for the game. So on the PC, with the right hardware, you will be able to run it at 1080p with 60 frames per second, whereas a cap of 30 frames per second still applies to the consoles. The game itself looks stunning and seemingly doesn't drop in performance often enough to complain about it. Stylistically speaking, this game looks gritty, war-torn, and definitely bears the mood of centuries of conflict. The immersion is broken, however, by zone capture lines and circles that appear around opponents when locked onto. But this is a trade-off between gameplay and immersiveness, as such should be overlooked. For Honor brings new tweaks to an old formula. It encroaches on the territory of Dark Souls PvP without ever being a clone of it. New gameplay mechanics such as 3 stance guard and well-defined and mostly balanced classes. And I'm looking at you, Raider, make it a refreshing sight in a game industry where multiplayer became synonymous with 8 vs 8 FPS shooters. The careful design and thought that was put into each class and its respective combos and abilities are stunning. It is a joy to play and discover new ways of defeating your opponents, as well as learning how to defend yourself effectively. The learning curve is unforgiving, however. 1 minute you are fighting noobs with spamming the same attack over and over, and a few matches later you're pitted against players that don't give you room to breathe, and before you know it, it's all over. Finely tuned combat, fair rules, what seems to be lack of lag, and very accurate hitbox makes this game a joy to win and educational to lose, as every missed parry or block is experience gained indeed. Every character is given 3 pieces of armor, chest, arms and helm, and 3 pieces of weapon customization, blade and either shaft, hilt, pommel or guard, which all could be swapped in for different stats that work in a way of sacrificing one for another. However, it only matters in the minion mode and is purely cosmetical in all others. In addition to that, you get to customize your emotes that you earn through leveling, your color schemes and patterns on your armor, passive and skills that unlock as you level up within the match, and several other cosmetic pieces for your clothing. You also get to choose your finishing moves, only one at any given time, which I think is a bummer, as it would be much cooler if it was randomized every time you execute an enemy. When it comes to game modes, as much as Duel, Brawl, Dominion, Skirmish and Deathmatch are fun, it lacks in variety. Where Duel, Brawl and Deathmatch is essentially the same with different number of players, not that it's bad mind you, and Dominion is a simple hold point ABC, it would be nice to see other modes such as Horde or Wave or King of the Hill. Classes variety is amazing. It can suit any sort of playstyle you desire. Fast and nimble glass cannon, or a towering hulk of a beast. Your choice. So far they are well balanced and very fun to experiment with. I'm sure with patches and future DLC it will become even more so. The order system is a fun way to encourage people to play different modes and classes every day, but lacks something as I came across orders that make you win brawls and duels without dying once. And after trying to complete it several times, I just gave up as my opponents would leave after losing the first round. I blame them not, as they have no point to continue. Thankfully, Ubisoft doesn't punish you for other people's mistakes, and if that happens to you, you still get the win. But it does unfortunately discourage people from playing orders and modes, which obviously shouldn't be the case. The interface and main world map can be confusing at times, especially at the start, as the tutorial never explains that you can only deploy war assets straight after the match and before exiting the matchmaking and rewards screen. In addition to that, there are some other minor unintuitive issues about the menu and the interface. But it only goes for the menus part of the game, and not for the gameplay itself. The world map is an interesting feature that so far seems to be incomplete, as it doesn't really evolve into anything meaningful. Then some extra clicks after the battle and hope that your team will get better loot in the end of their turn. It doesn't motivate me to invest into War of the Factions as much. War of the Factions by itself is an interesting idea. I remember playing Warhammer Age of Reckoning and being always upset that I couldn't play with my friends if they picked the wrong side. Thankfully, in For Honor, that is not the case. You are still able to play with your friends regardless of the faction you use. However, that diminishes the impact of the faction you chose, especially that you can choose another one throughout the game. Getting kicked from the game because failed to connect to the server shouldn't be a surprise in this kind of a game. The main question is how often does that happen? I'd say 1-2 times out of 20 games. So not that often, but enough to mention it here. I'm sure with the later patches and updates this will be resolved and diminished. The loading times are excruciatingly long, but can be overlooked as matches themselves last quite long, and as such it's not a big deal. Weird clipping issues or falling through a map are practically non-existent. However, as one of the players left the game, I saw his character just slip onto the map ever so sneakily. There are other issues and glitches such as connection errors and timeouts, but they are so minor they are not worth mentioning. In conclusion, after following this game from the very beginning of the developing process and hearing the word visceral as description to this game, I must say I struggled to find a better word to describe it, as visceral it is. Playing all those betas in the main game, I have realized that I have not had so much fun and adrenaline while playing in the longest while. Defeating random players with your buddy in Brawl is an ultimate bonding experience, and getting that revenge mode just in the nick of time always so satisfying. As much as it's fun, it is also very frustrating and will cause a lot of salt, as I myself already have been at the verge of rage quitting several times after forgetting to manage my stamina and trying to jump away only to be stopped in the back. But I think that's the charm of this kind of a game, and it comes with the territory. Anyone who likes might and magic, minus the magic, and strategy action gameplay, For Honor is for you. I give it 8.5 out of 10.